different people. Incredible. Incredible. Wow. I think you just have to make sure you dispose of them before you die also. That's, I don't know if we'll fight them. Right? 100%. Incredible. All right, Shabbos, say good morning. Let's begin. A lot to do today. Today's daf is Ayin Gimel. We are starting from Ayin Beis on day 72b. So remember again, we picked up, we left off with the Mishnah, or I should say we didn't leave off, but we started the Mishnah yesterday about the case of Shachat Imo v'achar kach chatcha basar. So remember again, this is the case of the uber extends its foreleg outside of the mother. You shacht the mother, so the foreleg is extended, and then afterwards again you go ahead and you cut off the foreleg. V'achar kach chatcha basar. You cut off the foreleg afterwards. So remember again, we had a machlokes as to what is the status of the flesh of the remaining uber. So remember again, Rabbi Meir said that the uber is maga nevela, and the Chachamim said it's maga treifa shchuta, right? Maga treifa shchuta. So if you remember again, so halacha lamaisa, we were discussing in the middle of, so the Gemara asked, I don't understand, according to Rabbi Meir, why is this maga nevela if at the end of the day, this is Tuma Bulua, right? And we just established in the previous sugya, halacha lemaisa, that Tuma Bulua is not problematic, or Tumas Beis HaStarim is not problematic, to which the Gemara essentially answers, Rabbi Meir is of the opinion that Tuma Bulua, in fact, is problematic. Tuma Bulua is problematic. So the Gemara says, ultimately, where do we see this from? So we left off, Rabbosai, Amar Ula. Amar Ula, it's 2, 4, 6 lines up from the bottom. Amar Ula, lo shanu ela shlosha al shlosha shenechlak. So we'll say ultimately again, when do we say? Remember again, we spoke about the piece of cloth, the garment, that was 3 tefachim by 3 tefachim, and again it contracted tumas medrus. So halacha lamaisa, if you split it in half, it loses its tumas medrus, but ultimately again it could contract what the Gemara calls tumas maga medrus. So lo shanu ela shlosha al shlosha shenechlak. So when is this true? This is true if ultimately it's a piece of cloth, 3 tefachim by 3 tefachim that you split. Aval shalosh al shalosh habaos mi beged gadol. But I will say, if you have an article of cloth or a piece of clothing that is 3 finger breadths by 3 finger breadths, that comes from a much larger article of clothing, at the time that they are separated from the mothership, the larger garment, ultimately, again, they acquire tumah from the larger garment, i.e., because the larger garment is still intact. After you go ahead and you separate out the smaller piece, so the smaller piece is able to retain the tumah from the larger, we'll call it larger mothership with its tumah intact. Hanami, so too again, this limb of the uber, b'shas prishasan me'ever, mekabel tuma me'ever. So too again, about say in this case over here, when the uber is separated from the aver, again, uber separated from the aver, the uber referring to the part of the fetus which is in utero, the aver referring to the part which is extending out of the mother, it retains the tumah ultimately again of the aver. Ravina says there's a different approach. Beged lav lechaticha koi. So ultimately again we'll say stama beged is not really omeid to be cut into pieces. Uber lechaticha koi. An uber, on the other hand, is omeid to be cut into pieces. What does it mean an uber is made to be cut into pieces? We're talking about animals that are consumed. So ultimately, again, it's normal that halacha lamaisa, it is going to be cut into pieces. And I will say anything that is omeid to be cut into pieces is as if it's in pieces already. Kiman, I will say, whose opinion does this reflect? Rabbi Meir. Therefore, I will say, if you understand that anything that is omeid to be cut, it's as if it's cut already, then what? Then halacha lamaisa, this no longer becomes tuma belua, this no longer becomes tumas beis hastarim, because ultimately, again, these parts are made to be detached. Because they're made to be detached, that renders it essentially like a case of revealed attachments, and if it's revealed attachments, that's what Rabbi Meir will say that the limb conveys to the rest of the uber tumas maga nevela. So Gemara says this nan kol yados hakelim she'aruchos va'asi lekatzitzan. So this is actually an interesting case. If you have a kli that has a handle, and the handle is very long, so what happens? And you're going to go ahead and you're going to shave down the handle. So we'll say, what's the halacha? Mat bil ad makom mida. If, let's say, again, the utensil becomes tameh, you are not obligated to immerse the entire handle. Rather, you're only obligated to immerse up to the part of the handle that is going to be part of the functional kli. But anything that is going to be removed does not require immersion. Div Rabbi Meir. V'cham decham say no, ad sheyitbal es kulo. The Chacham say no. They'll say in this case, the handle is the handle is the handle. What's going to happen in the future is irrelevant. Right now, it's part of the kli and therefore requires immersion. To which the Gemara says, "Afil tima Rabbanan." But I will say, even according to the Rabbanan, chabure ochlin kiman demifrisi damu unegi ba'dadi. Even the Rabbanan Rabbi say who disagree in the case of the handle of the kli would agree in this case of the limb. Why? Because ultimately, again, connection of food items is as if they have already been disconnected from one another. So we'll say this is kind of a corollary to what we said before, which is that halacha l'maisa, because food items are ultimately made to be detached from one another. So because of that, halacha l'maisa, their attachment is considered to be something that is revealed, something that is visible, and therefore again, the limb that ultimately extends out of the mother does in fact have the ability to pass on tumah to the rest of the uber. Good. Bishlama le'ula hainu diktani chatcha. So we'll say this whole thing makes sense according to Ula. That's why the Mishnah says, you cut it. But according to Ravina's interpretation, why does the Gemara, why does the Mishnah need to use Lashon of Chatcha? To which Ravina will say, it's a case of Mishnaic symmetry. Since the beginning of the Mishnah used the word cut, so ultimately again, the end of the Mishnah, or really the second case in the Mishnah, uses the word cut as well. All right, beautiful. So the Chacham disagree, and they say, Maga treifa shchuta. We'll say, so if you remember again, the Chacham and the Mishnah have a different approach. All in the same case. The mother is pregnant, fetus extends its foreleg out of the mother. Shchita occurs. So shchita occurs at the time that the foreleg is still extended outside of the mother. The Chachamim Paskin Abba say that's what? That ultimately, again, that foreleg has the status of treifa shchuta. Treifa shchuta. Right? What's the status of treifa shchuta? So we'll say, so apparently, at least what it sounds like according to the Mishnah, is that ultimately, again, a treifa shchuta treifa shchuta, as opposed to nevela. So says the Gemara, treifa shchuta mi metamya. Does a treifa shchuta? So most remember again, the lashon of the Mishnah was v'chachamim omrim maga treifa shchuta. The Chachamim say that ultimately the rest of the uber that is in utero is coming in contact with a piece of meat, in this case the foreleg, that is a treifa shchuta. So we'll say the inference from that statement is when we say maga is always a word that is used in the context of what? Of tumah. So that sounds like ultimately, again, a treifa shchuta conveys tumah. To which the Gemara says, is that true? Treifa shchuta mi metamya? Yes, it does. Ki da'avua de Shmuel. Da'amar avua de Shmuel. Treifa sheshachta metama b'mukdashin. So it's actually quite interesting. When does it go ahead? When does it go ahead and convey tumah? Only by karbanos. So we'll say, interestingly enough, the only case of a treifa shchuta that has the ability to convey tumah is in a case of mukdash, in a case of karbanos. So you'd have to go ahead and set up the Mishnah as referring to a case of a carbon. Okay, beautiful. Tanya. So we'll say let's go back there. So I'm sorry. Mamatzina b'treifa sheshchitasa mitarasa af shchitas behema tetar esa uber. So we'll say if you remember again, when the Chachamim were trying to prove their point, they said the following. They said, how do I know ultimately again that this foreleg has the status of a treifa shchuta and not of a nevela? How do I know that? So the logic they advanced was, we see that by a treifa, ultimately again, it's shchita's mitaris. We'll say stam treifa. So we'll say, what's the halacha if you shech the treifa? What's the halacha? Can you eat it? No, but it's not what? It's not nevela. It's not nevela. So if you see that by a treifa, the shechita ultimately, although it does not render it fit for consumption, takes away any possibility of tumah. So the Chachamim posited, av shchitas behema titaras ha'ever. So the shechita of the mother should certainly prevent the foreleg, which is extending out of the womb at the time of the shechita, from becoming an avela. Simple cheshbon. Simple cheshbon. So remember again, Rabbi Meir didn't like that, because Rabbi Meir said you're comparing apples and oranges. Shechita has the ability to be metaher a treifa, because that's what's called, Rabbi Meir calls a davar shebegufa. So shechita has the ability to remedy something in the animal itself. The extended foreleg is not something that is a part of the animal, but rather is something that is extraneous to the animal. Who says the mother's shechita is going to be able to fix that? So let's analyze this. Tanya. Amar and Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir says to Chachamim, so what are you suggesting purifies this limb from becoming tumas nevela? Shchitas imo. So you're telling me, so this is Rabbi Meir talking to the Chachamim. So you're telling me that it's the shchita of the mother that prevents this aver from becoming an avela. So Rabbi Meir will say, imkain tatirenu ba'achila. So Rabbi Meir says, come on, Chachamim, right? Be a little bit more idealistic. If the shchita is enough to go ahead and take away any nevela status, why doesn't the shchita permit the foreleg for consumption the same way that the shchita of the mother allows it? In other words, I will say, this act of shchita is one that permits the mother for consumption. If you're going to tell me that the act of shchita which permits the mother for consumption takes away nevela status of the limb, why doesn't it also allow you to consume the limb? In other words, why stop at removal of tumas nevela? Why not give a license for consumption as well? Amrulo, to which the rabbis respond to Rabbi Meir, Harbe matzeles al she'ino gufa, yosem gufa. Now the Gemara is going to say in just a moment that this statement makes no sense. We're going to explain it, but first of all, we'll translate it. So the Chacham responds to Rabbi Meir, well, shchita has the ability to do much more for something that is not part of the body of the mother than for something that is. Shahare shaninu, for we learned, chotech mina uber shebeme'eha muter ba'achila. This was the last Mishnah, that if you reach into the mother and you cut off part of the uber, ultimately, again, the mother and that part of the uber are still muter ba'achila. Minat cholu minat klayos, but if you reach into the mother and cut off a piece of her spleen or her kidneys, asr ba'achila, ultimately the mother is asr ba'achila. To which the Gemara says, Maika Amri, what are you talking about? In other words, what is the meaning of this exchange? So here we go. Amar Rava. Va'amri la kidi. So we'll say, some say, so Rava, others say kidi. We'll say kidi means it's just without attribution. Chisrei mechsre v'achi katani. We'll say, ultimately, again, there's a piece missing from this dialogue, and here's how you have to read it. Here we go. Amar lahen Rabbi Meir. So Rabbi Meir said to the Chachamim, V'chi mi tiaru la'ever zeh midei nevela. So Rabbi Meir says, Chachamim, according to me, so remember, again, we'll say, according to Rabbi Meir, what's the status of the limb, the extended limb? Status of the limb? There's only one or two possibilities over here, right? It's either nevela or treifa. Nevela, right? Good. So I'll say, so stop being so humble. I know it's a humble bunch here. So I'll say, so the nevela, right? Rabbi Meir says that the extended limb is an nevela. So Rabbi Meir, Chachamim say it's maga treifa. So Rabbi Meir says, okay, Chacham, let's analyze this. V'chi mi tiaru le'ever zeh midei nevela. What's ultimately, again, purifying this limb from the nevela, according to you? Shchita simo, the shchita of the mother. Imkain tatirenu ba'achila. If that's the case, then halacha l'maisa, why not take it all the way and say that the shchita ultimately permits the limb for consumption? To which the Gemara says, Amrulo, so the Chacham say back to Rabbi Meir, treifa tochiach. No, I'll prove this to you just from a stam case of treifa. Sheshchitasa metarasa midei nevela ve'eina matirasa ba'achila. Both in the case of treifa, shchita works to go ahead and take away any type of potential nevela status, but yet does not work for achila. So what do you see from there? You see from there that halacha l'maisa, shchita could sometimes work to remove tuma, but does not necessarily work to permit achila. Amar lahen, so Meir says, if that's the case, Amar lahen, lo im tira shchitas treifa, Osa davar shehu gufa, tetar esa iver davar she'eno gufa. Teacher Rabbi Meir responds, but still I don't understand. You're bringing to me as a proof the fact that shchita works for a treifa. But I will say that's why, so Rabbi Meir says that's why, because the treifa is a status that is inherent in the body of the animal. Who's to say that the shchita will ultimately work for what? For the ubar, which is not part of the animal. Amrulov, to which the Rabbanan responds to Rabbi Meir, harbe matzeles al she'ino gufa, yosemi gufa. So the Rabbanan say back to Rabbi Meir, I'm going to tell you a surprising fact, which is that sometimes shchita of the mother, or I should say, sometimes you can do things to the uber, right, that could work for the uber and yet not work for the very mother which is carrying that uber. For example, sharishaninu chotech mina uber shebeme'eha muter ba'achila. Because we learned, for example, if you were to reach into the mother and cut off a piece of the fetus, ultimately, again, the mother is totally unimpacted and still kosher. Yet, minat chola minat klayos. If you reach into the mother and cut off a part of the spleen or of the kidneys, asser ba'achila. Ultimately, again, the mother will be asser ba'achila. So we'll say, so interesting, the point that the Gemara is making over here is that halacha l'maisa, you could find situations where ultimately, again, even though where the halacha treats the mother more stringently, ultimately again, than the uber itself. So Tani Nami here, Bryce that supports this. Amar Rabbi Meir. So we'll say this is pretty much like the same version of the dialogue. Amar Rabbi Meir. V'chi mitiaru la'ever zeh midei nevela. We'll say first wide line. Ayin Gimel Amad Aleph. So Rabbi Meir says to the Chachamim, is it true that the shrita of the mother goes ahead and takes away tumas nevela from the limb? So Amrulo shritas. I'm sorry. So Meir says, what is it that ultimately takes away the nevela status from this limb? Amrulo shchitas imo. The Rabbanon will say it's the shchita of the mother. I says Rabbi Meir imkain tatirena ba'achila. If that's the case, let the shchita permit the limb for consumption. Amrulo treifa tochiach. To which the Rabbanon respond, look at treifa. After all, what does treifa teach us? Sheshchitasa mitarasa midei nevela ve'ina matirasa ba'achila. Ultimately, again, the shchita will take away nevela status, but yet what? Does not go ahead and permit it in consumption. Amar lahem, so Rabbi Meir will say to them, im tira shchitas treifa osa ve'es. So we'll say now we're varying this a little bit. Amar lahem, im tira shchitas treifa osa ve'es evra hamedul dalba debar gufa or davar she gufa titar esa ubar she'enu gufa. So Rabbi Meir, now this price introduces something new, which is then going to be our next topic for discussion. So Rabbi Meir says, if the shchita of the treifa, imtira shchitas treifa, osa, if the shchita of the treifa, ultimately you're telling me, goes ahead and takes care of the mother, prevents her from becoming an avela, and Avraham Aduldal. But say Avraham Aduldal means, this is our next case, if there's a limb hanging off of an animal, this is just a regular animal, not a case of birth. A regular animal that has a limb that is hanging, that cannot heal. So it's hanging. So we'll see what the shechita does for that limb, right? So So just because again shechita works for the body of the animal itself, should shechita automatically work for the ubar, which is not part of the body? To which the Rabbanan then respond, Amrulo, harbe matzeles al she'eno gufa, yoser mi gufa. You would be surprised that sometimes the halachos concerning something that is not part of the mother's body are in fact a bit more mekel than things that are part of the mother's body herself. How so, says the Gemara? After all, shari shaninu chotech min ha'uber shebeme'eha muter ba'achila. If again you reach into the mother, you cut off a piece of the uber, the mother is still permitted for consumption. Minat chol u'minat klayos aser ba'achila. ultimately again, but if you cut off from the spleen or from the kidneys, it is asr b'achila. So I will say, we're left over here with the machlokes between Rabbi Meir and the Chachamim in terms of halacha l'maisa. What is the status of the limb that is sticking out of the mother at the time of the shechita? Rabbi Meir telling us that it has the status of nevela, and therefore, again, by extension, is metame the rest of the ubar in utero. Out maga nevela, and the Chachamim telling me no, it's maga treifa shchuta. The Rabbi say, if ultimately again the limb that is extending outwards has the status of treifa shchuta, what's the impact on the uber on the inside of the mother in utero? And the answer is generally nothing. The uber inside will be fine, with the one exception, which is if it is a sacrificial animal. So by sacrificial law, maga treifa shchuta does convey tuma midirabanan. But otherwise, again, in a non-sacrificial case, the truth is the uber in utero is totally unimpacted by the limb which is extending outside. We'll see what to do with that machlokes in just a little bit. We'll see what to do, because the Rambam groups in a couple of other cases, which we'll discuss. So the Gemara goes weiter. Amar Rav Shimon Lakish, ki machlokes be'obrin, kach machlokes be'ivarin. So also Rav Shimon Lakish says the same way of machlokes over here by the fetus, we also ultimately again have a machlokes by a varin. And I will say now what does this mean? So we'll see ultimately again let's see. Rabbi Yochanan Amar machlokes be'iver. So ultimately again, Rabbi Yochanan says the machlokes is only ultimately again by the aver, by the limb of the fetus. Be'aver de ubar, aval be'aver de behema, divrei hakol shchita ose nipol. But we'll say ultimately again with the limb of the animal itself, everyone agrees that shchita makes it as if it's detached. Then we'll say, now what does this mean? So first of all, look at Rashi for just a moment. Ki machlokes be'ever de'obrin. So we'll say according to Shimon Lakish, according to Reish Lakish, the same way of a machlokes about what is the status, machlokes Rabbi Meir and the Chachamim, about what is the status of a limb of an animal that is sticking out of the womb at the time of the shechita. So too there's a machlokes by an aver, what we call aver hameduldal. If an animal has a detached limb that's like hanging on by a thread, what is the status ultimately again of that limb? Look at Rashi. Kach machlokes be'ever hameduldal bebehema. Till Rabbi Meir ein shchitasa metarasa ulrabanan shchitasa metarasa. So I will say, so Reish Lakish posits that the same machlokes that exists by the limb of an ubar that is extending out of the mother extends to basar hamaduldal, a limb of the animal that's hanging on by a thread. What is the status of that limb, Rabbi say? So Reish Lakish will say, Rabbi Meir holds that at the time of shechita, that limb becomes like an avela. That limb is not really part of the animal. It's not really part of the animal, and therefore again has the status of nevela. Right? Chachamim will say it has the status of treifa shchuta. Rabbi Yochanan holds that halacha l'maisa, the machlokes is only by the case of a limb of an ubar, but by aver de behema, everyone agrees shchita ose nipol, which if you look at Rashi, ose nipol, b'shas shchita harihu kinofel mimena ve'in shchita samo eleslo. So we'll say ultimately again, everyone will agree that at the time of the shchita, ultimately again, it is considered to be detached. It is considered to be detached ultimately again from the animal, and the shechita has no positive impact ultimately on that limb. So let's analyze this machlokes. Amar Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Chanina, my time is Rabbi Yochanan, liba de Rabbanan. So we'll say, what's Rabbi Yochanan's logic according to the Rabbanan? So remember again. So even the Rabbanan apparently will hold that this basar hamadulda at the time of shechita becomes detached, and therefore becomes like nevela. So why do the Rabbanan hold that a dangling limb becomes like an avela? Yet what? By the limb of an ubar, what do they hold? That it has the status of what? Of a shechted treifa, which ultimately, I will say for our purposes, is what? Is tar, to which the Gemara says a very simple distinction. Hai islei takanta bechazara, v'hai leslei takanta bechazara. See, Rabbi say, the limb of the ubar has a potential remedy. What's the remedy? The ubar could always draw it back. As opposed to the basar hameduldo, remember again, Rabbi say, the definition of this dangling limb, Rashi points out, is a situation where it cannot heal. it cannot heal, meaning it will not reattach. It can only fall off. That is the only possibility because it has no takana, shchita osa nipul, and therefore, again, at the moment of shchita, it essentially becomes rendered like an avela. So the Gemara goes weiter. The Gemara says, Meisvei, Amar Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Meir says, Im lo tira shchita streifa osa ve'esa Avraham adul davar shebegufa titar esa ubar, davar she'ena gufa. So this is what so Rabbi Meir clearly seems to say that what? That if it's imlo tira shchita streifa osa ve'esa Avraham adul davar. I'm saying Rabbi Meir seems to be on record as saying that what? That ultimately again shchita does have the ability to purify the limb. So what's happening over here? Amud Beis. Bishlama l'Rab Shimon ben Lakish l'Divreim Kamar Lahu. So according to Reish Lakish, Rabbi Meir is not espousing his own shita. Rather, Rabbi Meir ultimately again is espousing the shita of the Rabbanan. He will say l'Didi loshna ever de uber v'loshna ever de behema ki adadinenu. Rabbi Meir will say, according to me, right, in my view, the aver, right, the limb of the fetus and the dangling limb of an animal are exactly the same. When you go ahead and you shecht that animal, what do those limbs become? Nevela. Nevela. So we'll say, so rather, when Rabbi Meir says that the shchita has the ability to go ahead and be metaher, Avraham Aduldal, he's talking to the Rabbanon. He's not talking about his own shita, he's talking to the Rabbanon. Ella, Rabbi Yochanan Kasha. Rabbi said, according to Rabbi Yochanan, this is problematic. Why? Because Rabbi said, according to Rabbi Yochanan, he holds, according in his view, everyone agrees that halacha lamaisa, when you shecht an animal with a dangling limb, shchita ose nipol, and that limb ultimately has the status of the vela. So how would Rabbi Yochanan understand this brisa, where Rabbi Meir seems to be saying, that halacha lemaisa, the shchita has the ability to be metaher, the dangling aver, to which the Gemara says, Ella itmar hachi itmar. Rather, again, if you're going to interpret the machlokes, here, so you have to interpret it. Amar Shimon Lakish, ki machlokes be'ubrim, kach machlokes be'ivarim. So Rish Lakish would say as follows. The same way that there's a machlokes between the Rabbanan and Rabbi Meir, in the case of ubrim, right? In the case, ultimately, again, of the fetus, kach machlokes be'ivarim. So too there is a machlokes ultimately in what? In limbs, right? Dangling limbs. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, machlokes be'iver du'uber. Rabbi Yochanan will say, so we'll say, in Rish Lakish's model, the machlokes between Rabbi Meir and the Chachamim applies in all cases, we'll call it of special circumstances for limbs. Special circumstances. Whether it's the limb of an uber that is extending out of the womb, or it's a dangling limb that is virtually detached from the animal. However, Rabbi Yochanan machlokes be'ever de uber. Rabbi Yochanan will say the machlokes is only in the case of an aver of the uber that is extended outside of the womb. Aval aver de behema, but also when it comes to the aver of a behema, which I will say first to the Avraham Aduldal, the dangling limb, divrei hakol ein shchita ose nipol. Everyone will agree that what? That shchita ultimately, again, does not affect detachment of the limb. So, I'm Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Chanina. My time with Rabbi Yochanan, with Rabbi Meir. So we'll say, so now it comes on Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Chanina, and he says, Rabbi Yochanan, you hold that when it comes to the Aver of the Behema, everyone agrees that ein shchita ose nipol. So let me ask you this question. What's the logic according to Rabbi Meir? So we'll say, remember again, Rabbi Meir holds that by the limb of an ubar that is extended out of the mother at the time of the shechita, what's the status of that limb? It's an avela. Yet you're telling me that according to Rabbi Meir, the Avraham Aduldal, right, b'shas shechita, that limb does not become an avela. Why? So the Gemara says, so my time with Rabbi Yochanan, I'll leave Rabbi Meir. Sahai gufa, v'hai lav gufa. For a very simple reason, Rabbi Meir will say, because the limb of the ubar is not part of the guf of the mother, but the limb, the Avraham Adulda, ultimately is, to which the Gemara says, Hai gufa, v'hai lav gufa, one is part of her body, and one is not. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak bar Yosef, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Hakol modim shemisa osenipol vein shchita osenipol. So as it comes along Rabbi Yochanan, he says something else. Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Yosef says in Rabbi Yochanan, everyone agrees that shchita affects nipol, but ultimately again, that misa does not. I'm sorry, just the opposite. Misa affects nipol, shchita does not. I'll say, take a look at Rashi for just a moment. Shemisa ose nipol, aver hameduldal bebehema. If the animal has a dangling limb, umesa, and then the animal dies, hamisa mapeles osa, ultimately again, death makes it as if the limb has become detached. Ve'ena mitame ke'ever min hanavela, ela ke'ever min achai. So we'll say, this is actually quite interesting. You see, if the animal dies, if you hold that the limb is attached, then the limb has what type of tumah? Right? Nevela, because the animal dies, just a nevela. So we'll say, what's interesting over here, Rabbi Yochanan is positing that ultimately, mitza osenipo, which means when the animal dies, it's as if the limb was already detached. If the limb was already detached, this is amazing, so that limb is not considered to be the limb of an avela. Instead, what is it considered to be? Ever min achai, which is interesting, right? It's ever min achai because it's considered to be detached, ultimately, again, prior to death. So what's the nafkamina if you're ever min achai or if you're an avela? So this is actually quite a fascinating Rashi. Look at this. Shemisa osa nipol, ever hamadulda babehemo, meisa hamisa mapeles osa, ve'eno tamik ever min an avela. Therefore, again, because you're saying death affects detachment, so ultimately, again, this aver is not considered to be a limb from an avela. Rather, it's ke'ever min achai. The hefresh yesh b'nei. We'll say, what's the fundamental difference? Here we go. This is amazing. Amrinam ba'or v'arotav. Eiver min hachai basar haporesh mimenu tar de'in metame elekishu eiver shalin basar gidin va'atzamos aval nevela kizayis mimena tame avatumar. We'll say this is amazing. The eiver min hachai also transmits tumah, but eiver min hachai only transmits tumah when it's a fully intact limb. It has to be a fully intact limb. If, let's say, you get a kizayis of meat from an Ever min achai, that transmits absolutely no tumah. Masha'en kain nevela, even a kizayis of nevela does in fact transmit tumah. We'll say, isn't that fascinating? Yeah? Incredible, no? I'm just saying, it's one of those interesting facts. You never know when you're going to use that in life. Right? Well, I'll say, but again, both convey tumah, but amazingly enough, Ever min achai, the Ever has to be intact, but Basar min hanavela, even a kizayis. So therefore we'll say, now Rabbi Yochanan is kind of upending things. He's saying everyone agrees that misa osenipo. If the animal dies on its own, death affects detachment of the dangling limb. But it affects detachment effectively when? Essentially, like a moment before death. So therefore, again, it's considered to be Ever min achai, not nevela. On the other hand, vein shchita ose nipol. But I will say, shchita, on the other hand, does not affect nipol. Shchita ultimately allows the limb to still remain attached. To which the Gemara says, what are we dealing with over here? Ilema be'ever de uber. If you want to say we're talking about the Ever of the Uber, well, miflag pligi. They both say that is subject to the machlokes Rabbi Meir and the Chachamim. Ela be'ever de behema. Rather, you have to say that we're talking about over here what? The actual Ever, ultimately, again, of an animal. Or it's a regular, nothing to do with pregnancy now, but the Ever of an animal that's dangling. To which the Gemara says, Misa tanina, shchita tanina. Well, if that's the case, we've learned these halachos already. How so? Misa tanina, mesa. So we'll say we learned about the case of where the animal dies. Mesa habehema habasar tzarech hechsher. If the animal dies, ultimately again, the flesh requires hechsher, right? Ultimately, it requires hechsher tumah in order to be makabel tumah. V'ha'ever mitame mishum ever min hachai. Ve'eno mitame mishum ever min hanavela. And the Ever, I will say, which is the dangling Ever, ultimately again becomes Tameh. Alts Ever min achai, but does not become Tameh in terms of Ever min hanavela, divrei Rabbi Meir. So we'll say we already see Rabbi Meir's sheet over here. Shchita nami tanina. We already learned the case of Shchita as well. Nishchita behema. If ultimately again the animal was shechted, Hochshiru b'dameha divrei Rabbi Meir. So we'll say, if the animal was shechted, the animal becomes hochshir l'kabel tumah through what? Through its own blood. Because also remember again, blood is one of the liquids that ultimately affects hechsher tumah. So when you shecht the animal, it becomes hochshir l'kabel tumah through its own blood. These are Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Shimon Omer, lo hochshiru. Right? Ultimately, again, Rabbi Shimon holds that halacha l'maisa, the shechita of the animal does not automatically go ahead and it doesn't automatically go ahead and create hochshir tumah. Look at Rashi just a moment. Lo hochshiru. Rashi says it's in the wider lines of Rashi, about 5 lines in. Utzrichin hechshir achar lekabel tumah. It requires a different hechshir lekabel tumah. The kasavar ein behema naasis yad la'ever lahavi hechshir aleha. So ultimately, again, so we'll say that's the case of shchita. Imeahi hava aminas. You will say if it were just from these cases, I would have thought my hochshiru. Ultimately, again, what does it mean when we say hochshiru? Abasar. That's ultimately, again, referring to the case of the Avraham Aduldal, the dangling limb. Hochshiru katani. But it says hochshiru plural, which I will say doesn't just refer to the Avraham Aduldal, but refers to the animal, the entire animal as well. Ma'udetema, what would you have thought? Chad lebasar aporish min abehema. One is talking about for flesh itself that became detached from the animal. The chad lebasar aporish min ha'ever. And one is referring ultimately again to flesh which becomes detached from the limb itself. Umay ulmei dehai mehai. But why would we think that one of those would be any stronger than the other? Sakadai tchamino howiel umetame tuma chamura agav aviv. I might have thought that ultimately again, since it becomes tameh in the highest form of tumah, as a result of its attachment literally to its father, in other words, to the rest of the animal, ema loli by hechsher. I might have thought that therefore it doesn't require any kind of hechsher tumah. Kamash malon, that is not the case. So halacha lamaisa, again, although we're not finished with this sugya, let me end off with a piece from the Rambam. So the Rambam says, in Shar Hilchos Avos HaTumah, Perek Beis Halacha Hey. So listen to this. Habasar o ha'ever hamidudalan bebehema o chaya, she'ena yecholin lachyos ulahadbik b'shar aguf. So we'll say, what happens? You have a hanging limb. Right, the hanging limb on an animal that cannot be reattached to the animal. Cannot be reattached. Einon mitamin kinevela. Ultimately, again, we do not become tameh like an avela. So we'll say, so this is actually very important. Kolzman shem behem b'chayin. Now we'll say, now the Rambam is adding a say that the Gemara did not mention, which is, what is the status of that limb prior to the shechita? Right? What's the status of the limb prior to the shechita? So halacha l'maisa, the Rambam says, as long as the animal is alive, that limb is like what? A regular limb of the animal. Regular limb of the animal. Fine. V'hari hein kishar ochlin imochshru mekablin tuma b'mkoma nishchita behema. We will say now that's case number 2. The animal was shechted. Hochshru b'shchita. So first of all, again, I will say, we assume that the entire animal becomes hochshru l'kabel tuma through the shechita itself. Ve'inon mitamin kinevela, but it does not become tamei like nevela. Why? She'ein hashchita osa osan kimo shepirshu mechayim. I'm supposed to listen to this. So apparently, again, we paskin ein shchita osa nipul. Right. So ultimately, again, when you shecht an animal with an Avraham Aduldal, we do not consider that as if what? As if the shechita has caused the detachment of the limb. So therefore I will say halacha l'maisa, the way that Rambam paskins is like what? If an animal, a regular animal, has an Avraham Aduldal, right? A limb that is hanging by a thread, that limb is considered what? Part of the animal. And therefore when the animal is alive, it's a regular part of the animal. When you shecht the limb, part of the animal. Amazingly enough, the Rambam says it's not nevela, it's not Ever min hachai, it's nothing. It's not nothing. It's a part of the animal. She'ena shchita osa k'moshpish aval imesa behema. If the animal dies, so we'll say that's shchita. So shchita says makes the Avraham Aduldal like a regular limb. What if the animal dies? Aval imesa behema habasa shay meduldal tzarech hechsher. Suppose if the animal dies, so ultimately again the dangling limb requires its own hechsher. Va'ever metame mishum ever min achai. Wow. Ve'ina metame mishum ever min hanevela. But I will say halacha l'naisa the Rambam Paskins is amazing that if the animal dies, then what's the halacha? that limb is not considered to be like nevela. That limb is considered to be like Aver Minachai. So we'll say, how do we paskin? This is amazing. This is amazing. How do we paskin? Misa ose nipul, ve'in shchita ose nipul. If the animal is shechted, that limb, even if it's dangling, is considered like a regular part of the animal. But misa ose nipul, if the animal dies, that limb is considered to be as if it's been detached from the animal literally the moment before its death. Therefore, again, the rest of the animal has the status of nevela. Ultimately, again, that limb has the status of what? Ever Menachai. And says the Rambam, what's the nafkamina? He quotes Rashi. What's the nafkamina? Ma bin Ever Menachai lever Menana. Nevela, Shabbos say, as we said before, what's the nafkamina? Nevela, Ever Menachai is only metame if what? If what? If the entire limb is intact. But ultimately, again, if you have a piece of meat from Ever Menachai, it is tar. Masha'in ki nevela, halacha l'maisa, even a piece of a nevela, kazais nevela, ultimately, again, will be matami. Incredible. But we'll stop over here for today on the parsha. So we'll say in Parshas Truma, we have the great zuchos to be able to read about the creation and fabrication of the Mishkan. And amongst the various kalim that we learn about is the Aron. So we know again the Aron was unique in that it was constructed of 3 distinct boxes. And again, outer box of gold, inner box of wood, inner box of gold. So the Gemara says, the Gemara Maseches Yuma says that the beauty of the Aron, which contained the Torah, was that it had an outside of gold and an inside of gold. So the Gemara Maseches Yuma Daf Ayin Beis Amud Aleph quotes a statement from Rava that you see from here something amazing. The Aron represents Talmid Chacham. Represents Talmid Chacham. So what do you see about the Talmid Chacham over here? The Talmid Chacham has to be Tocho Kibaro. That the Talmid Chacham has to be the same on the inside. His inside has to be like the outside. What Rav is telling us is that halacha l'maisa, sometimes we're very good at projecting a beautiful, pristine, and holy external image, but on the inside, I'm exceptionally broken. The goal in life is to be like the Aron, to be gold on the inside and to be gold on the outside. And therefore, Rava says, "Kol Talmid Chacham she'einu tocho kibaro eino Talmid Chacham." Rava says again, if you're not gold on the inside and the outside, you're only projecting the gold on the outside but not on the inside, then halacha l'maisa again, you are not a Talmid Chacham. I have to model myself like the Aron. I have to project not only an image of gold on the outside, but ultimately, again, project the image of gold on the inside as well. So the Rebbe of Sadigura, is one of the sons of the Rizhiner. So he says something absolutely amazing. So he says like this. He quotes the Gemara Maseches Brachos. So he says, what does this mean, right? What does this mean to be gold on the inside and on the outside? See, he quotes the Gemara Maseches Brachos. So we'll remember again, the Gemara talks about the idea that on the day, Rabbi Gamliel was the Nasi. And one of the things, so on the day that they deposed Rabbi Gamliel and appointed Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah in his stead. So remember again, the Gemara says Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah did many things that day. One of the enactments he made was that he removed the guards from the entranceway of the Beis Medrash. Because so the Gemara says, so Sheminu es Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah silku l'shomer ha-Pesach v'nital m'shus l'talmid l'nikanes. Shaya Rabbi Gamliel machriz v'omer kol talmid she'ein tocho kibaro lo yikanes l'Beis HaMedrash. Because Rabbi Gamliel had a rule. What was the rule? He said entry was only granted for Talmidei Chachamim who were tocham kibaram. Right? Your inside has to be like your outside. Right? If your inside is not like your outside, like the Aron Abris, then you can't come in. So Elazar ben Azariah removed the guards on the entrance of the Beis Medrash, and again the Gemara says the Beis Medrash was packed. So the Rebbe of Sadigura says, tell me, how can you tell if someone's inside is like their outside? Or I don't understand. So the guard's standing there at the doorway, right? So what's the pshat? Suddenly the guard is going to be able to tell, well, you look genuine, you're not so genuine. You're gold on the outside, not on the inside. You're gold on the inside, not on the outside. So the Rebbe says, umakshim Minayim yada shomer apesach litos kol tam b'sheit tochol kibar leikanas beis hamedrash. I'm sorry. He says. Minayim yada shomer apesach litos al tamid im tochol kibaro im piv kilibo hein kedei lios yodem achshavos v'lachtor lemitzpuni halev tzarich ruach hakodesh. How could the guard standing at the entrance gate of the beis medrash possibly know which Talmud was tochol kibaro and which of the Rabbos say? An incredible kasha. No, an incredible kasha. HaHezbo, listen to this. Achina daltos niskelu b'fnei hakol says there was something amazing. Rabbi Gamliel closed the doors of the Beis Medrash, and the doors were closed. Ela osa talmud shebechol kolchol maratzo b'chal liba v'nafsho ratza likanis parutz es kol hagederos mesiras nefesh nichnas. The Bible says the of Sadigurus. What Rabbi Gamliel did was he sealed the entranceways. He put a padlock on the doors. So what happens? I show up to the Beis Medrash, and the doors are locked. So it says there are two different kinds of people in this world. Some people, when the door is locked, what do? They go home. And other people look for an open window. And other people look for a skylight. And other people look for a crack in the edifice. Says the Rebbe of Sadigura something amazing. If you're a Talmud who's tochel kibaro, you don't get turned away in life because of the closed doors. You find your way in to the Beis Medrash one way or another, like Hillel through the skylight, or ultimately again in some other way. However you can get in, ultimately find your way in. Says the Rebbe of Sadigura. That's what it means to be tochel kibaro. See, Rabbosai, a lot of times in life we say we want certain things. I want ruchnius, right? I want holiness. I want kiddusha. I want divekus. I want to be an Eved Hashem. But then what happens? I show up, I want it, and what happens? The doors are locked. And what do I say to myself? No, I tried my best, I showed up. Right, I came, I tried the doors, right? I juggled the doors multiple times. It's locked. What am I supposed to do? I showed up, that's great, and I go home. Says the Rebbe of Sadigura, that's if you're gold on the inside and on the outside, if you are the Aron Habris, then ultimately, again, if you want something in life, you don't rest and you don't stop until you find it. And if the doors of the Beis Medrash are closed, you find an open window. You find an open skylight. And if all the windows are closed, you know what? Sometimes you have to smash some windows in life also. Right? We live in Baltimore. That happens all the time. Right? So windows ultimately, again, to get what you want out of life. See, sometimes we talk about what we want, but we're not really willing to do the hard work to get it. We talk about what we want, but as soon as the doors are closed, no, I tried, what more can I do? I will say the Talmud Chacham, the individual inside and the outside, the individual who is tochel kibaro, when he wants something to get it, and even if the doors are closed, he finds another way in. I will say, may we be Zoch Hashem to actualize our own identity, to become gold on the inside and on the outside, and even if the doors of accomplishment are locked, to find the courage to find another way in.